Linda,
Hi, Laura.
let's wait a couple more minutes for people to arrive. Reed isn't feeling well today, so he won't be here.
Okay.
All right, why don't we go ahead and start? I know that Reed won't be here and Terry is, I think, connecting by audio at some point. Oh, there she is. Yeah. Okay. Hi, Terry.
Good morning.
All right,
Yes,
let's give Melinda a second to come back.
So I'm just gonna say I was away from Friday till
oh,
late last night, so haven't looked at any of
still on it.
the stuff, so. Too much fun in Monhegan.
Oh yeah, I've been out having fun too. It's been so nice. Good thing it's a rainy day. All right. Any public comment today?
Nothing from me.
Thank you, Reed. All right, let's go on to or actually any business that anyone would like to mention that's not on the agenda. The only thing I wanted to mention was that I have an invasive work morning at Catamount on Saturday. And I haven't invited scouts or anyone to join. Ethan will not be there. I wanted to keep it small because of the Delta variant. And yeah, I just saw a message from Hans that he is laying low because the kids are home from school because of quarantining because they were exposed to someone in school. So it's out there. And so I know some people are planning on being there, but whoever shows up, I think it'll be a small group, but that'll be okay. All right, Melinda, let's go on to look at the minutes. Hi, Kim.
Okay.
Hi, sorry, I couldn't say hi until I acknowledged that we were being recorded.
You see the minutes now?
Yes, I could
Okay.
see, I couldn't talk or be seen.
Yeah.
Could you scroll, keep scrolling for a second, Melinda, please? So I have one question. And that is, it says the minutes were submitted by Melinda, but it was Matt that was staffing the meeting. So did Matt do the minutes, or Melinda, did you do them from his notes, or what?
I did him from his notes, but the date should be September 15th, not September 1st.
Okay, yeah.
Any other discussion about the minutes or?
Wait a minute.
Oh.
Today's September. Oh, I see this submitted on September 15th. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Right.
And
I'll move approval of the minutes.
any, okay, thanks. I guess, sorry, one more thing. Approved by the Conservation Commission, that's what should say September 15th.
Yeah, both of those dates should be September 15th.
Yeah, okay. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Okay. All those in favor of accepting the minutes as amended signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the minutes have been approved. All right. Let's see. We have a couple minutes before the next item on our agenda. I just wanted to follow up on one thing in the minutes, and that is Melinda and I just chatted briefly about the meeting, and we were thinking that if Fellowship of the Wheel is interested, even though bikes are not allowed on the conservation side of South Road, the Mud Pond Conservation Area, we were wondering if adaptive bikes would actually be considered bikes, or more like, you know, handicap accessible ways to get somewhere. So that's just one thing we're thinking about, so that it would be safer for adaptive bikes to get to the Mud Pond Country Park. And I mentioned this to Adam Morse in an email, and so he can look into it if he wants to. And he was the Fellowship of the Wheel person that we talked to last week. All right, so going on, let's talk about the capital improvement budget and parks narrative.
Yeah, so I apologize. I added this to the agenda because I got an email from Shirley saying it was due on October 1st. So this is kind of your chance to have a look at the, I don't know, potential trails projects and weigh in on priorities. I did not include any numbers with this budget, thinking that it would be easier just to have you weigh in on priorities. And then if I know what the priorities are, then I can figure out what the budget proposal should be. So this is different from the operating budget. This is the 5-year capital improvement program budget, where we think of big projects that we want to do and we budget them over the next 5 years. I should preface this discussion with a reminder that last year the town manager proposed and the select board accepted having a general category in the capital improvement program that is a trail management fund. So this year, fiscal year 22, there is $5,000 in that fund. the following fiscal year, 23, there will be $10,000 in that fund. And then every fiscal year thereafter is slated to receive $20,000 for major trail projects. And this is a first for that. And it provides a substantial amount of money for just, major trail projects, so that if we get a grant for something, we can match it with those funds or just use those funds exclusively to do projects. That being said, every year, Todd Goodwin and I put together this narrative and submit it with the capital improvement program budget. And I took out the parks, like the community park and the Allenbrook School Park, because Todd's really, and the rec committee are really sort of focused on that, and just to limit our focus to the country parks and trails. So basically, this is the progress report. It states the projects that have been done in the last year or so. And then this is followed by future projects and needs. So if you, if you want to comment on this list of future parks or future needs, this fiscal year, the Allenbrook Nature Trail Boardwalk is going to be replaced, and that money has already been set aside. That's going to be done over the early winter. The contractor is Timber and Stone, and they have proposed dismantling the old structure sometime after the middle of October, and then building a new structure, as soon as possible. But it'll be in the winter sometime. So there will be a period of closure for that, as undetermined, but the contractor understands that we want to limit that period of closure. I thought the winter is a good time to do this because the trail is not as well used during the winter. Anyway, that's sort of an aside, but that Allenbrook Nature Trail Boardwalk is going to be done this year. It's not included in future projects here because we've already set aside money for it.
Hey, Melinda. Sorry to
Yes.
interrupt, Melinda. On that one, as I'm watching my kids get ready for school here, it just reminded me as I was listening to you that trail, I know there's a bunch of kids that use that trail for their commute to and from school.
Yes.
So I just would encourage you to think about some warning notices or something on the trail ahead of the construction, so that they can plan for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely on my mind. And I think, I want to do that, sort of broadcast it far and wide, and think of various ways that we can do that. Even, posting on Front Porch Forum, also maybe putting signs at all the entrances, just saying work is planned for this fall, and there will be a period of closure, and just, we'll keep you updated as that approaches, kind of thing, just to give people a heads up. But yeah, I am aware that people use it to get to and from school, so it will be a disruption. Yeah. Okay, so sort of moving on from that, in addition to the boardwalk, I've noted some improvements that are needed right after so at the entrance to the trail, there seems to be some erosion, and SE Group recommended installing some box steps there. And then as you leave the boardwalk on the other side, there's a really bad spot where it's very muddy and eroded. And I'd like to do something after that, like maybe another series of some kind of steps, rock staircase, something of that nature, but that's slated to be done probably the summer after the boardwalk. Something like that. And then
Melinda, could I ask you to blow this up? I'm just, I have a small screen. I'm just having, thanks.
The stuff under the Catamount Community Forest, you may want to have a look at it, but I will be discussing these things with the Catamount Committee. And then there are other priorities. This last one, the Schmoker Trail, I myself consider that one to be a pretty high priority because the boardwalk there is in pretty bad shape and is kind of a safety hazard at this point. We've sort of, Anne has done some kind of emergency temporary repairs to it to stabilize it, but the boards are really wobbly. It's, you know, it's really starting to rot. And it's not the most popular trail, but it is used by some folks, and it's a, you know, it is a safety hazard at this point. So anyway, that's kind of all I have to say about this this list here. The Sucker Brook, we've been steadily over time had a BYCC crew work on that trail every summer. They're working there right now to do a reroute, trail reroute of a steep eroded section, and to work on putting in a set of box steps where a section that's really muddy. So anyway, if anybody has any comments, feel free to share.
Melinda, question. So the $5,000, that first initial amount that we're getting for trails, is that what you're planning on using for fixing up the Allen Brook? Or is this over and above that?
This is the $5,000 is fiscal year 22, and I'm actually using it to pay the BYCC crew to do improvements to Sucker Brook. So that's already being used. The $10,000 is for FY23, which starts next summer, next July. So that is that can be used on whatever, on anything, I guess. We do have a separate budget still for the Allen Brook Boardwalk, which includes not only the boardwalk, but the two approaches to it. So there is money in FY23 to work on the approaches to the boardwalk. These two projects, oops. These two projects up here have a budget, have a budget that's separate from the Trail Management Fund. So.
Okay, one more thing. I see invasive species management for many of these parks and trails, and I wondered about that being also in the Catamount budget. And the reason I say that is because I forwarded you a message yesterday from Ethan, and he's really pushing to get a contractor into Catamount to you know, get some of these invasives under control, just because there are so many there.
Yeah, and actually invasive management should probably just be in the operating budget. So I probably shouldn't have put them in this budget, except that I guess I just note that they are a need, but more likely the money will come out of the operating budget for these things. And there is money in the Catamount, or there is money in the operating budget, and the committee could talk about trying to get more money in the operating budget for invasives.
I have a catamount, it's just mostly like a question about invasives there that maybe the committee can just say, members of the committee can just say, we're on it, or like, oh, good to know. Which is that like, the other day I was wondering if all of the Velco work has really disturbed lots of areas, which is like understandable. And I was gonna say it's fine, but I don't know, maybe it's not fine. Depends what your definition of fine is. Anyway, lots of invasives take hold in disturbed areas. And so just like could there be some preemptive something in those spots where Velco has done work to make sure that like the result of that is not like a greater invasive problem? I don't know if that's possible. Just making a note mostly.
Can't hear you, Gary.
I didn't say anything, but they do, doesn't Bilco manage underneath their power lines pretty heavily? And the only thing they don't cut is, mass trees like apples and.
But I guess what I'm talking about is they've been doing a lot of work at Catamount and have created a staging area, and that has disturbed a lot of areas that would not have, that are not under their power line, right? It's just like their access points. And those are areas where many understory invasives opportunistically come in post disturbance, right? Like that's how they take hold. And so I don't know that probably they have some like great remediation plan. Maybe they do, and I'm being too pessimistic, but mostly I'm like, maybe we should just be carefully watching where their deck was, because it seems like it would not be surprising to me if in the spring it was like ablaze with green leaf out before anything native is leafing out.
I guess that could be part of the mowing program. So there's a 3-year rotating mowing program. So maybe that could be part of that added in there for next year.
Kim, what areas are you talking about? The only staging area I'm aware of is the big one that's right in their power line, right access through the gravel access road. Are there other?
That's what I'm talking about, but it's not under the power line. It's like the whole of that. It like goes up to it, but maybe it's part of their easement, but it's like that. So it used to be like a single track, and it has been like substantially widened, and
Okay.
like part of the red on black race course was closed for a few weeks because of it.
Okay.
So like
that's
what I'm thinking
area.
of like used to be like pretty thick bush and brush, and so I can imagine honeysuckle coming in there. That's my point.
So there's a committee meeting coming up pretty soon. So probably we could talk about that, and that could be part of the, mowing, grassland birds, and just to, keeping back some of the, the junk, the invasives that come in. So that probably would be a good area to be flagged, to be mowed on a regular, 3-year cycle.
It's basically in between the gravel path and the climb that the power line is on. I could like draw a circle of where I'm thinking on a map if it's helpful. But just, I think just generally like anywhere that there has been disturbance is like, a potential spot for invasives to take hold. So I think my point is more just like, hey, they were in there with machines. So like maybe keep an eye on those spots.
Belinda, do you know, do they go through their easement underneath the power line there at Catamount with herbicides, or are they strictly just using chainsaw and manual?
I am not certain. I think they probably use herbicides. I think that's sort of generally their practice, but I'm not. I could probably find out because I'm sort of in touch with the Velco people related to all the work they're doing this summer. So I could reach out to them.
Linda, could you back up to the progress section for Catamount
Mhm.
right there? I'm wondering if you want to include all the work that Terry has done on building and installing bluebird boxes, and also a line about management of the East Field for grassland nesting, which was successful this year.
Sure.
Thank you, Melinda. Melinda, thank you so much for putting this together. It's really nice to see everything laid out and what everything that needs to occur. And do you have an idea of what you would be asking for in a capital improvement project budget?
Well, I think I think the $10,000 for fiscal year 23, I'd like to bump it up to 20,000 so that we can do that Schmoker Trail boardwalk project. I think it's going to take more than $10,000. And for future years, I think the $20,000 a year is probably something we can work with, and perhaps in conjunction with grant funding. I know that for Catamount, the fellowship is applying for an Ursa Trails grant to build the adaptive trail. That's not Catamount, sorry. For Mud Pond Country Park, there's the adaptive trail. Of course, it's unknown whether they would get that grant, but I think it could be a pretty strong proposal. For Catamount, the town is collaborating with COFC to apply for a VORIC grant to construct a new access trail and to do the trail wayfinding signage. And again, big question mark on whether we actually get that grant. But so of course, we can stretch our money much further if we get grants we can leverage grants with that. So that's sort of the goal, is to go after grants to the extent that we can.
Melinda, can you just remind me if those require matching funds? And then I'm also wondering if Eric can maybe just speak to the Lake Champlain Basin Program's Natural Heritage Grant, and could the wave, if the current applications to the state weren't successful in wayfinding signage, could maybe it wouldn't be wayfinding, but as interpretive signage, given the historical significance of the property, could that be a good fit, Eric?
Yeah, certainly possible. I think the signage that Ken's referring to would be our, I assume, similar to the wayside exhibits that we have installed around the soccer fields and around the bike path behind Williston Central School. That's what you're thinking of right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so those are our wayside exhibit program for the Champlain Valley National Heritage Partnership. And I can get you more information on that one if you're interested. And you've been through the process, and you're probably familiar with it.
As far as the grants, the Ursa grant and the VORIC grant, they don't require match, but of course, the grant proposal is much stronger, I think, if you have match, if you can commit some match. So anyway. And the VORIC grant, we're asking for quite a lot of money for that. the wayfinding signage, the Catamount that COFC would like to install is pretty extensive. I mean, it basically is a complete overhaul of their signage and, you know, would install "You Are Here" maps and trail signage at lots of different intersections to just make it a much more user-friendly experience navigating their trails. Yeah, and then,
That's a good idea, because it is very confusing there.
yeah.
Melinda, who writes these grants besides maybe COFC partnering with you? Are you the one that usually writes the grants?
Well, for COFC, the town is going to be the applicant because I think they give preference to towns that have designated villages, and Williston has a designated village. So I thought it would be stronger if the town is the applicant for that one. For the for the Mud Pond Country Park Adaptive Trail, Fellowship is going to be the applicant. And if they, you know, I'll probably take a look at the grant application and do some, you know, editing and stuff like that to help them, but they're going to be the primary writer for that grant. And then for the VORA grant, I will be writing the grant application. Me and Kim will do it together. Not Kim Coleman, Kim Stinson.
And for the Catamount Barn grant, are you talking more with Kim about, are you working with her on that, the sheep barn grant?
We haven't really talked about that yet. I think there needs to be some further, I don't know, assessment and planning before we apply for a barn grant. So we're not going to, there are no immediate plans to apply for a barn grant because it's just, we need to further define, number one, what the intended use of the building is, and number two, what the steps are in renovating that building, whether it's, you know, if it's just going to be continue to be storage for COFC equipment, then we're really going to do as minimal work as possible to keep it standing and keep it stabilized. If it's going to be used for community gathering and office space for COFC, that's an entirely different thing, and you will require much more extensive renovations. So I think that's to be determined.
Are there restrictions on how it can be used because of its status, or are there just restrictions on like how it has to be restored?
There are just restrictions on how it can be restored. The Vermont Division of Historic Preservation wants to be able to weigh in on any proposed restoration. And I'm sure that it's going to have to follow national historic preservation standards.
All right, thank you, Melinda. Any further comment?
Just seconding thanks to Melinda.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Is there any update on that Jacob Krantz property?
Yeah, that's been kind of a frustrating one. You know, I think we've been waiting for 3 years for the Winooski Valley Park District to secure an access agreement with the church. And I'm not sure why it's taking so long, but I suppose at some point we may want to revisit the question of, do we really want to transfer the parcel over? And maybe if we want trails there, maybe it'd be quicker for the town to just secure access and build trails there. I don't know. Maybe something to discuss.
Wasn't there another access to that property at some development over near the,
There are-
Agway or whatever the place is now?
Well, there are a few potential access points. The most ideal from the perspective of just, accessibility to the public and parking area and the least disruption to neighborhoods is the church property. And they've, I think they are in support of it, but for one reason or another, just kind of dragging their feet to get an actual legal written agreement. So
it's
anyway.
not Winooski Valley, it's the church that's,
No. So yeah, Winooski Valley Park District has been working with the church under, the thinking that the Winooski Valley Park District would eventually acquire that parcel and manage it for trails. But so far, I haven't seen much action on getting an actual access agreement with the church. It doesn't seem like this property is a very high priority to Winooski Valley Park District right now. So
now wasn't that there something, this was before I was on the board committee, this would be a good fit for the town and Winooski Valley because of the money that the town gave to the Winooski Valley. Because they didn't thing in Williston that they were managing.
well, I mean, I think the idea was this would be the first park in Williston, access from Williston, that Winooski Valley Park District could have. So that was, that was kind of a big deal. And but so far, nothing's really materialized. So. Gary, we can't hear you, Gary. Oh.
If you're commenting into the chat.
Yeah, you can always throw something in chat. Oh dear. No.
I've also tried logging out of Zoom and reconnecting. Helps with my
Yeah.
issues sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll just wait for a minute to see if Gary puts anything in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Just another note, the town hall fields, we have been working with a scout to do an Eagle Scout project to construct a kiosk, but that's taken a very long time to materialize. And, so anyway, that's sort of, we're kind of waiting, see what happens with that. Not sure why it's taken so long, but anyway. And Chapin in the meantime has been doing lots and lots of work on that parcel to remove invasives. So kudos to him. He's pulled about probably 3,000 poison parsnip stems and removed some buckthorn. And every year he sends me a report of the work that he's done on the property. And it's just like, he's like model, I don't know, trail adopter or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah. Oh, now we hear you, Gary.
Jeez. I didn't have anything super important to say. I can't even remember now.
Oh, no.
Just-
Oh, dear.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention also that Chapin took the pesticide applicator exam the same time I did, and we both passed both exams, the forestry and the core, which means that we can apply pesticides to invasives in I know that Chapin's excited about that for that property that he's been working.
So Laura, I know you mentioned in your email that you may be handing out daubers to people to take home.
Yeah,
I guess just in terms of liability for the town, I'm not sure that's a good idea.
okay, even if they're empty, yeah, I
Oh,
can see
yeah.
that.
Well, maybe if they're empty, yeah, sure, I guess, but, and then people can decide whether they want to like go get some pesticide.
Right,
I just, I don't know, I would have concerns about sending people home with pesticide or with herbicide, I guess.
okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, this is, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, glyphosate is the herbicide. It's the herbicide in Roundup. But it's, this is, cut stump treatment is a very safe application of glyphosate. It uses very minimal amounts. I mean, so minimal that you can have these bingo daubers for a long time before you go through it. And as far as the chemical itself goes, it adheres to soil if any drops spilled or whatever, and doesn't go into groundwater. And so it's actually relatively safe. And it's an herbicide that homeowners can use on their own property, but not off their property. Same with Roundup, just in case anyone didn't know that.
Did you end up, Laura, getting a little, like a little bucket and rubber gloves and things like that for the folks, or just
Nope, I'm gonna,
handing them out?
I am gonna bring buckets, but they're gonna be out of my garage. And I think we have some gloves also that, we have boxes of gloves that I can bring too.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and the other thing about glyphosate is you cannot apply it unless you're certified or under the supervision of someone who is a certified applicator. And so since I am a certified applicator, that is why folks can, if they are comfortable, use it.
What's the legality of applying it as a spray under any circumstances?
It's the same.
Okay.
And that would be, Ethan probably would be doing that, right? The foliar.
No, I think a contractor.
Contractor, that's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah, a contractor. I could, but I just feel more comfortable doing cut stump. And having, those, short volunteer days where we can get out and teach people mainly about invasives so they can treat them on their own property. So thanks, Melinda, for mentioning that. It's something I hadn't thought of.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine to give out daubers, just empty ones. That's probably fine.
Okay, yeah. I have a bunch. I feel like it's my gift to the town to hand those out to people.
Oh, nice.
All right. If there's nothing else, we can go on to the final review of the Mud Pond Conservation Area Management Plan.
Yeah, so just, I had written down from your discussion last time, the notes you made about the revisions that you wanted to see. And so I went through the plan and I put in those revisions. Yeah, so I could, I guess, yeah, if you want, we can go through the plan and I can show you those revisions. And then the last one, I think you were asking about whether this is an official trail. The answer is I don't really know. But if people enjoy it, we can always blaze it and add it to the map. So that's what I decided to do in the plan, is just to say that we're going to blaze it and add it to the map.
I guess there is a little sign there that says trail ends here, which I guess if we're gonna make it part of the, trail, we should just take that down.
Well, I think the intention of that was just to try and keep people from going out to the pond. I don't think that
That's right.
people still go out to the pond, but
They do, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Melinda, I know you weren't in the last meeting and, but maybe we mentioned this to you that, the neighbors who were with us on the walk, they love that loop. They walk it every day basically, and they talked about how the light shining through the hemlocks was just so beautiful. And so I think it is a good idea to blaze it and add it to the map. If anyone else wants to weigh in on that, please do.
It makes sense to me if people are using it and there's no real harm in making it an official part of the trail. It makes sense to me. Otherwise, people will just wonder whether or not they should be using it.
So at this point, do you feel like this is ready to transmit to the select board?
I feel like I have gone over it enough that I feel comfortable, and I looked over it one more time with your, with these items that were added, and it looks good to me. So if everyone feels the same, we could have a motion to approve the management plan.
I've got one question before we do that, Melinda. Are all the recommendations that are listed on page 14, do they get transported over and included on the action items on page 19? It looked to me like that one about the loop trail you put on page 14, but I don't think I saw it on the last set of action items on page 19. Yeah, did all of those get, or do they need to be? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it did. So let's see. I mean, some of these things I didn't add to the action items because they're more routine, like clearly marking trails for allowed uses and continue to monitor and maintain. I mean, so, but I could definitely add that to the action items. Whoops. Yeah, okay, I can do that.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Melinda. Any further discussion? Or do you want to spend a minute on the action items?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, so we would just need a motion.
A motion, do we accept? I make a motion that we send this to the select board. Is that the right motion? That's the next step, right? Yeah, I make a motion that we send this to the select board.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Eric. All those in favor of sending the updated management plan for the Mud Pond Conservation Area to the select board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Does anyone abstain? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your work on this, Melinda.
You're welcome. This one was it sort of came up in the last couple of days. I apologize for the late addition to the agenda, but let's see, how did it, oh, I know. Because we're transmitting to the select board a bunch of bylaw amendments, including sort of a major cleanup of all of the chapters. The cleanup consists of making sure references to other chapters of the bylaw or the town plan are correct, making sure references to state statute are correct, and also making the bylaw consistent with current state statutes. And so a question came up about definition of a hazard tree, because I don't know if you had a chance to read the memo that I that I included along with this, but recently we've gotten some inquiries from homeowners associations asking whether they can take down ash trees that are that may fall on structures. And so currently our bylaw doesn't allow that. Currently the definition of, or in other words, I'm sorry, well, let me back up. Taking down trees that are within watershed protection buffers. So currently the bylaw allows removal of hazard trees that are in watershed protection buffers, but the definition of hazard tree is restricted to trees that are showing visible signs of damage or structural weakness that may fall on a structure. It doesn't include trees that might be infected with emerald ash borer or basically just ash trees. Meanwhile, the state wetland office changed its definition of hazard trees to include basically all ash trees that are in areas of infestation, which includes any area in Chittenden County at this point. So if you look down at the state's definition, this is the state's definition of unsafe trees. And it says, due to the presence of emerald ash borer in Vermont, ash trees will be significantly impacted by this forest pest. An ash tree within an area infested with emerald ash borer may be considered for removal under this allowed use when within striking distance of a structure or facility, and areas of infestation are mapped on the Vermont Atlas. So the question is, should the town amend its definition of a hazard tree to be consistent with the state wetland rules, or should we just leave it alone for now?
So I just have a comment about the part where it says within infested areas. So you think that that doesn't necessarily mean that the area that the actual tree is in has been documented for infestation. Is that your understanding, Melinda?
I think, well, I'd have to look at the atlas, but I think at this point that is Chittenden County now considered an infested area, or is it just?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I mean, you could have it in one small corner of Chittenden County and nowhere near the trees that we want to take down.
I would say it's whatever is mapped as infested on the, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so where is it? Oh yeah, areas of infestation are mapped on the Vermont Atlas. So whatever areas are mapped as infested would fall under this definition.
So do we also require that where it says documented and photographed with written recommendation by a professional forester, do we require that in our definition?
Let's see. Hazardous trees. Tree that possesses structural defect.
It does say the recommendation of the county forester
Right.
may be
Can
required.
be required at administrator's discretion.
So that's a little different than the state then. The state
No,
sounds like.
I understand. The main question here is whether to expand the definition to include ash trees. basically, any ash tree, whether it has evidence of infestation or not. Because, you know, that's the question that we've been getting from homeowners. Like, we have ash trees within a watershed protection buffer, and they look like they could fall on this structure over here. Can we remove them?
I have a question, which is that if the ash tree in the watershed protection buffer became infested with EAB under the current language, that would be removable, right? It's just that the state has expanded that to be like any ash tree, regardless of its health or mortality. And so
Yes.
the question in front of us is, do we want to align with that? And I think that, like, I'm of two minds. As like, one, I disagree with that on the part of the state, but two, I think it's not great to have conflicting guidance. So I would love to hear, people have really different feelings about how to deal with EAB. So, or maybe approaches is the better word. So I'm interested to hear, like, Gary, I don't know what you think about the state's expansion of that to be any ash tree anytime.
I guess I don't think that's terrible, but I do think that we should require that a professional look at it, because for one thing, I'll bet there's a big difference in, like, my opinion of how likely an ash tree is to hit a house than Joe landowner. So, you know, and so I don't want to just open it up. All of a sudden they're cutting down all the ash trees in the watershed protection areas because they think they might hit a building.
But the administrator would have to approve that, right? Do you think rather than have an administrator, it needs to be the county forester?
Well, and I'm even wondering, like, there are some times where I think, this is nothing against Vermont County foresters, actually, I think that they're all amazing. But like, sometimes in an urban setting, which some of these areas might be, they're actually not trained. So like urban forestry and like arborists have different training. And so, like, there's part of me that's like, should this be like a certified arborist? I don't know, because it's very different. Like, some of these buffer areas are truly forested areas, and some of them are, like, I don't know, much more.
Yeah, I think I've got more faith in them than you do, perhaps, Kim. I
have
think
a lot of faith in them. I didn't want that to come across that way.
No, but I mean,
Just that, like, sometimes in like a
Yeah.
like a more like close to home setting, I think arborists have like a lot of training about like how to secure trees and like,
Yeah.
right, like all of like the mechanics of that. Foresters typically don't get that coursework.
But you should ask Ethan sometime, because a lot of what they do is urban forestry. You know, they'll constantly be called into these type of situations. So they've got a lot of experience in it. I don't know if they're as experienced as arborists, but.
I just want to note that Ethan was called in to look at a homeowners association specifically with regard to removal of hazard trees. And after about 5 minutes, he decided to leave because it was just of no interest to him whatsoever.
That's funny.
So
It's just, it's not that I think that they can't do I think I have to smooch a child. It's just that arborists, this is like what their training is, right?
Yeah. I guess I'd like to see some kind of control by somebody that doesn't have a vested interest in cutting those trees down, approve of it. That, you know, because I honestly do, I've seen people go out and start cutting trees down and they just go crazy. They think, well, there's a chance when that get older, it might hit the corner of my building or something like that.
Melinda, what's the definition of the administrator?
that's the zoning administrator.
Mhm. And Gary, you don't think that the zoning administrator would do?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know much about the training of the zoning administrator in terms of, you know, how hazardous trees are.
Yeah.
My guess is it's not a lot.
Yeah, I would just think that during this time when a lot of homeowners are going to want to start cutting down ash trees, that would be an incredible burden also on the county forester. I don't know, maybe that's not true.
That was
Um,
just- that went through my mind also that
Yeah.
the whole need for managing potentially hazardous ash trees on the shoulders of the county forester, that's
Yeah.
a big burden.
A compromise might be for Bruce Hort to do that. Isn't he the tree warden in town?
Yeah, he's
He's
also
not gonna wanna-
super yeah, he's also wicked busy and way in favor of getting rid of all the ash trees.
Okay.
He
Got
cuts
it.
them all down, right?
Yeah.
Maybe could be a combination of an arborist and the state, county forester, although, Kim just said Ethan was, or somebody said Ethan was, did not show the interest of dealing with that situation, but
There is like a database of like on Vermont Urban and Community Forestry website. There's like a database of people that are certified arborists and also have like some certification in like planning for EAB. I can't remember what it's called, but like Elise Shadler sent it to me a while ago because I have 2 ash trees in my front yard.
I mean,
And
I
so
don't,
like, I wonder,
Yeah.
we could even just like link to that list.
Uh,
I can try to find it.
I'd like to have somebody like that approve of these, because I think, I don't know, maybe I've got a bad feeling for this, but I just think people are gonna once we announce this, they'll just start cutting trees down.
So alternately, what about just kind of leaving it alone for now? And just not expanding that? I mean, it seems like you're sort of opening up a whole other can of
Yeah.
worms.
Right.
But
is this buffer 50 feet? Is that what this buffer is?
generally, except for it's 150 feet from the Allen Brook and the Muddy Brook and the Sucker Brook and the Winooski River.
So a tree would have to be pretty big to hit a house, right? Or they're just talking safety in general, like if somebody walks under, not only just hitting a building, but
No,
somebody
it's
walking.
it's really just threatening structures.
Oh, structures. Okay, so the tree would have to be way bigger than 3 feet tall to be
Yeah.
considered. Yeah.
Mhm.
I have, I guess, like 2 questions just before we put this issue, I guess, to rest. One is, Melinda, how do you feel about or does anyone, I guess, have concerns about having language that does not align with the state language? Like, does that create an issue for the town at all? And then I'm wondering if Eric has any, like, I think there are other concerns about the tree, but I'm wondering if Eric has concerns about what it would mean for the wetland buffer if suddenly all the ash trees disappeared. I don't know if that would be significant or not. It's not my like ecosystem.
To answer your first question, the town can certainly have more restrictive watershed protection rules than the state, and currently does have, at least with regard to the main streams. Our buffer is wider than what's required by the state. So I don't think that would be necessarily a problematic issue.
Yeah, and I don't have a good understanding of the composition of the forest buffers around our rivers and streams and wetlands. So it's hard to say one way or the other how much of an impact it would be if a few or how many ash trees would be cut down in the wetland buffers. Presumably they would be replaced by something else, hopefully not buckthorn or whatever. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that question, Tim, sorry.
Mhm.
Are there a lot of homeowner associations that are talking to the town about this?
So far, only like 1 or 2 But also, I mean, I have gotten inquiries from just homeowners and from associations. There's one association in particular that seems to be fairly aggressive about cutting hazard trees. And that's the one that's, that reached out, I think, right away. So
I have just like I almost want to be like, let's stop recording before I say this, but it's not that negative. I'm like really curious to know how confident they are that there are ash trees in this wetland buffer, because I'm just sort of thinking about like areas like the Allen Brook behind our neighborhood. It has a lot of box elder, which like really like having wet feet, and has bark that does not look super dissimilar from ash trees, and its leaves are similar also. Like another common name for it is ash leaf maple. And so like I would not be super surprised if people were like walking around these wetland buffers and going, oh my God, look at all these ash trees, but actually they're Acer negundo, right? Like, is that possible that that's happening?
sure.
Sure. I mean, the box elder are a much smaller tree in general. You're not going to see 100-foot tall box elder, but it's a good point.
Jim, I can't hear you.
There's a huge one behind my house, Gary.
Yeah, but they're not, and generally they're not a.
No,
big
yeah, you're right.
scale
But
tree.
like if somebody was like looking at like a guide and they were like, oh, it has sort of like groovular X-shaped barks and it has these like leaflets and they look like this, and they hadn't taken a dendro class ever, I can see people being like, there's like 10 ash trees behind my house. But
Yeah,
Mhm.
I agree.
Throw a whole new other, I mean, this would just open it up to other, but the other alternative is to treat the tree, which sometimes is cheaper. To consider that before cutting them down.
I'm assuming there's restrictions on that in the watershed, but that's why I didn't bring it up. Maybe there's not. You have to like, the tree like drinks the treatment. I don't know. Maybe there's not restrictions, but
Oh, true. Yeah, you're putting it into the drilling and putting it into the tree.
yeah, I don't know. I think it's pretty localized. I don't really know how that happens, but maybe there's not restrictions.
Might be like the buckthorn blaster thing where it doesn't leach out.
All right, it sounds as if we may want to leave this alone. I mean, is that the general consensus? Because we're concerned about people thinking they have ash. We don't know if the zoning administrator can recognize ash trees. So is that the general consensus, do you think, from everyone?
I think so. I think I'd rather leave it. And generally I agree that it's good to align with the state, but in this particular case, it's things that are to have a little bit more local control.
Yeah,
Maybe the county could come out and identify the trees, to begin with. That would be like the first step.
yeah. Homeowners associations could also hire their own
And arborist.
arborist or whatever to take a look. All right. Okay, so if everyone thinks that we can just leave this alone, Melinda, does that make your job easier to just hand them the hazardous tree definition?
That's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, I mean, this is going to pass, right? I mean, this is a blip in time that we have to, unfortunately, worry about ash trees as hazard trees. So, all right, let's see.
On the geologic scale.
Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, in 10,000 years, we'll have a completely different set of trees around. All right. All right. Well,
I
it's a
have
la-
to go get this child needs my attention. I'll be back in a little bit.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Melinda, staff report.
Yeah, so just a question about how everyone is doing. I think we still had a few sections that we wanted to add to the annual report. Kim had a section she was going to write about increasing online engagement during COVID. So just a reminder, and let's see, trainings and presentations, a list of guest speakers. I can't remember who it was who was, maybe I can just come up with that. I'll just put, and then what else? Oh yeah, Jens's work on significant wildlife habitat map. Oh, somebody, oh, I see. All right, so somebody started working on that. My guess is Reed was doing this. All right, so it sounds like we're getting there. We're almost there, and just hopefully, you know, maybe next time, or we can wrap this up.
Melinda, did you see my comment in the water quality section about the status of the Winski Inner City monitoring program, or taking over monitoring program?
Is that, where is that?
It's right above the Yints section. So I can come to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I did. Okay, do we have any information? They did start sampling. So I could put that in there, that the stream team is sampling for the summer of, or began sampling during the summer of 2021. And it's 4 sites, I believe.
Mhm.
So I'll put that in there. Whoops, oh shoot, all right, I'll remember it. I just crossed out my comment. Let's see. Oh shoot, all right. I'll just remember to do those things. Anything else? Any other comments on annual report?
No, I don't think so. Would it be worthwhile sending out a reminder email in maybe 1 week saying we're going to wrap this up at our next meeting?
Sure,
I can do that, Melinda.
great.
Okay.
Does the Catamount Community Forest have their own section, or is that?
Yes,
I know Carl did, okay. Carl did one for the bobolinks.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and I think I
included
did-
in the Catamount annual report.
Yeah, I wrote that up, Terry.
Okay. All right. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is that the Champlain Valley Conservation Partnership is working with Audubon, Vermont, and the Partners for Fish and Wildlife program to do some plantings on a parcel that is just west of the Muddy Brook. It's this. This is the wetland, the Muddy Brook Wetland Reserve parcel owned by WVPD. So this parcel is just north of that. And because it's right across the border, I thought I'd, just report that it's some restoration work that's being done on, wait, where is this? You might be interested. It's restoration work that's helping to restore the Muddy Brook. And I also mentioned that I think there's private landowners on this side of the stream. And when they see activity happening on the other side of the stream, that may spark some interest in doing similar work on their own lands. But right now, let's see if I can zoom this in a little bit. Oh, wait.
Is this the part that the entrance is in South Burlington, but some of the land is in Williston?
This is, well, not this piece here. This is a private parcel. But there is WVPD parcel down here where you're right, the entrance is in South Burlington. And they're actually looking at expanding their trails into and through this parcel to the north. This proposed new alignment of walking trail through the Goodrich parcel. And then there's some invasives removal slated for this parcel, as well as plantings. And then some work to the stream itself, installing a grade control structure. So there's an interest in sort of restoring the clay plain forested wetland here. So that's kind of, that work is being done under grant funding that Audubon obtained, Vermont Audubon obtained. So anyway, just wanted to share that.
Is that, what timeframe is that work being done? Is it happening this year or next year?
Why does it say 2010? I think it's going to happen I want to say this fall, but I have to check on that. I can check at the next, I can reach out to Ashley Parker and ask her South Burlington.
And they have, so that's great to see. So
Yeah.
my understanding is that have they reached out to the Williston landowner to discuss comparable work on the Williston side of the brook?
I don't believe so. There are, I think, 3 different landowners on the Williston side of the stream. I don't think they have reached out to that side. I could ask at the next, or I could reach out to Audubon to see if that's a possibility, but I think this work has been sort of in the works for like the last year or so. So I'm not sure what it was about the Goodrich parcel in particular that initiated this work. It may have been like some kind of wetland mitigation that was required for
Yeah,
different
I was
projects.
wondering with all that, there's that giant development that's happening right uphill, I think. From there.
Yeah. Anyway, but it's kind of part of a broader effort, I think, by the partnership to really start doing more restoration of the Muddy Brook and the watershed. So, stay tuned for future potential projects along the Muddy Brook. And that's, yeah.
It's interesting that the arrow on this map pointing to the Winooski Valley Park District Park says Burlington International Airport mitigation site. Do you know anything about that?
I don't.
I think that was came into being because Burlington Airport was doing something around the airport and they needed to offset those impacts. So they bought or somehow acquired that parcel that's on the map you see here, to offset, to protect and restore and or maintain that area to offset whatever impact they're having on a project closer. to
Then
the
they
airport.
transferred it to Winooski Valley Park District.
Yeah, that's just going on sheer memory, which my memory is not all that reliable, but that's what the memory is telling me.
huh.
Melinda, just keep in the back of your mind for the partnership that because Vermont Master Naturalists are having a year-long training starting next fall on the Muddy Brook and focused on the Muddy Brook, and because it involves 5 towns, that at the end of the training, 20 hours minimum is required of groups to do a project that has to do with where the training has taken place. So it's just good to think about beforehand what those projects, what could be suggested by the partnership for the people training.
That's a good reminder. Yeah, and I think in fact, it's really like that program of the Vermont Master Naturalists, that particular class is kind of based or being sponsored by the partnership as a whole. So that's a good point, and I'll bring it up as a future agenda item for the partnership to be thinking of, because it is true there, there's like up to now, the partnership has consisted of town staff from these 4 or 5 towns and some board members from those towns, but really does not have the capacity to get any major project work done because, so this may provide that capacity to do, more focused work on projects in the watershed. So.
All right, thanks for doing that. All right. Any further business or anything that's on anyone's mind? Well, the weather's going to be beautiful after today, so everyone enjoy.
Oh, I have one more thing, sorry.
Okay.
So at the next meeting, we're going to be doing 2 site plan reviews. One, Kevin Mazuzin is coming in for his 2-lot subdivision. And the Vermont State Police Barracks are coming in for their discretionary permit. And I know you had discussed having a member do a site visit. Are either of these 2 projects of interest in, does anybody have interest in doing a site visit at either of these 2 projects?
Where is the first one, Melinda?
So Mazuzin's is off of Butternut Road. It's next to Gary Howard's lot.
Okay.
And Kevin said he's at home most days and he would be welcome to walk the property with anybody who's interested.
And what about the state police barracks? What's the magnitude of that project?
It's a big project. Well, so the state police barracks are moving are closing down their existing building and building a new facility up the hill from the park and ride. It's
Okay.
going to use the same access road as the park and ride, but they're building, a couple of buildings and a lot of, surface outside storage of vehicles and parking. So it's a fairly big project. WCC did look at the pre-app for that. And so it's totally, it's up to you. I think the consensus at pre-app was that the impact to natural resources was pretty minimal, given the location of the project. But if you do want to look at it, that's,
So could we schedule it after we look at it with them next meeting? Is that possible? Or
you could do that. Yeah, you could do that because we'll have some time between then and when they're scheduled for the DRB is the end of October, is October 26th. And so there will
yeah,
be a
I think
couple
for
of-
me at least, it'd be nice to look at it first and
Okay.
try to see if it warrants a visit.
Yeah, all right.
How many acres is it?
Is the parcel? Oh gosh, I don't know off the top of my head.
Like 10 acres or 100 acres?
It's not 100 acres. I think it's bigger than 10 acres.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
That was before I was on. Yeah,
yeah,
remember.
right. Yeah, that's certainly possible. And if the site visit results in any modifications to those conditions, we have another meeting at which we could discuss that.
Yeah, good idea, Gary. That sounds like a great idea.
What about Mizuzin? Does anybody have any interest in looking at that, doing a site visit there?
We did a site visit on Butternut, but that was, or off of Butternut, but that was somebody different.
That was different. Yeah, that was a very different project.
And this is a 2-lot subdivision.
Yep. Doesn't sound like there's anybody's chomping at the bit here, so.
Yeah, Melinda, unless you think that there is something there like, a dangerous slope or it impacts significant wildlife habitat, then even then I'm not sure. Unless there's a compelling reason to do a site visit, that you would suggest, then I think that it sounds like people are not interested.
Okay. Fair enough.
All right, yeah, plus, yeah, I think getting together people are still a little hesitant, even outdoors, just because of the Delta variant is still quite a problem, so.
Yeah, I think that's why it was suggested that one person from the commission would go and not everybody. So,
Oh, I see, yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, if something comes up and you think we should pay a site visit to either of these before the meeting, let me know and I'll go with you, or I'll go by myself.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Well, anything else? All right. Well, then this meeting is adjourned. Have a great next couple of weeks.
Bye,
Right.
everyone.
Bye-bye.